I've been in the managed IT or IT support or managed service business for 20 years, and the whole time I've been around, security has existed, but it's nothing like where we are now. And
yeah,
I'm like here to say this is my security minute for everyone, and you got to pay attention to this and how it affects everything. And I'll just start yapping, but we started in the MSP business doing desktop support, which led to server support and network support and backups. And then we went into hosting and cloud environments. And, then what we did is we centralized all the data, and we said, hey, let's make sure we put all of our email in Office 365 or Google. Let's start putting all of our servers up in Azure, AWS, or wherever you want to go. And what we did is we just made it real easy to find everything, right? We said, oh, let's just put it all up there. And I think that's what we're seeing, the biggest, change, the most attacks, the proliferation of vulnerabilities, right? Like we're all into this Log4j attack right now, and it's just the latest thing. And I want everyone to really understand that it's not going to get any better.
It's an exponential, like there is an exponential threat because we've become such a
connected,
reliant humanity or whatever.
Yeah.
On
well, we're all connected. All our networks are connected. We're all on
Right.
the internet. Like we've done this for ease of use, and we've done it for productivity in some respect, but when we've made it just so much harder to protect it all. So it's like that's the way I can wrap this into buildings, right? And I'm not going to talk much about it. It's not my field of expertise, for instance, really. But buildings are going to have networks, right? Yeah. Your car has a network. Your refrigerator's on a network. I mean, it's all connected all the time. So, like, what can we do to secure it? There's a reason that security vendors are not going to be taking a lot of time off this holiday season, and it's because that's really the time they're even going to look to be striking. And there are these vulnerabilities, and I think people aren't taking patch management as seriously as they need to.
So you really do you mind if this is kind of a conversation, Jerry?
Go.
So you mentioned something just now that is definitely on the forefront, that is going to be happening more and more frequently with like smart refrigerators and vehicles and things like that. So I'm on the utility side of things. I've been in energy for 25 years. And utilities are shifting their direction for generation, and they need to have that knowledge and data. So they're going in and doing efficiency programs and things like that with homes, smart refrigerators, just all of the smart appliances in order to kind of manage the demand on the grid. But with that does open up quite a bit of vulnerability for privacy. And are you seeing that?
I work primarily with business, right? With small business. So do I see that? Do I think that's a thing? Absolutely. Like, am I looking at it on a daily basis? No, but there are people that are, right? I'm sure there are people that specialize in this thing. I know someone else later is talking about managed IT services, which I think is going to be directly related to what you guys are doing on a daily basis. I want to come back to, like, all of you work for companies. All of you have networks of those companies. All of you probably have email hosted in Office 365 or blah, blah, blah. All these things, you have them, and someone just needs to make sure they're looking at them. And what I can offer, and MSPs can offer, and MSSPs are the new thing. So we have managed security, service providers. We've been around for a while, and now people are calling themselves MSSPs, which is like managed security service provider, because it's a hot buzzword. Like, I literally haven't put that on our website yet, but I probably will when it really means something more. But it's just a reminder that everyone needs to be talking to a professional about monitoring and managing security, right? And the one thing that we can bring to the table for any of you, for any of these things, is like 24/7 monitoring. That's like the big thing that's come out in the last year. A year or 2 years ago, if you wanted a 24/7 SOC team or security operations center team, it was prohibitively expensive. for a small business, for especially really small business, like we as MSPs got, these vendors to create programs that would fit our client base and fit that pricing, right? So coming to us, or any MSP, I'm not saying you have to come to my company, but any of these MSPs that are really focused on security can provide this, not only desktop protection, but Office 365 and email protection, network protection, right? As well as 24/7 monitoring of all of these things. And that's, technology has created the opportunity for us to do this at a lower cost because of AI, because of automation tools that are looking through. I mean, you're talking about ingesting thousands and thousands of logs, right? Whether those are logging into a network, logging off of a network, logging into email, logging off of email, or seeing what someone's doing on a firewall, like, or on a switch or on an access point. That's all being ingested at once into a giant database, a SIEM, right? And then they're be able to comb through this and look for patterns. And I think that's just the message I really want to get across to people, is this is going to be a thing on any network anywhere. Like it used to be, you were safe if you said, okay, well, I'm going to make sure I change the default password on my firewall. I'm going to make sure of that. Like that's low hanging fruit, right? But now, because those firewalls are connected to some kind of cloud source, whether you're Juniper or WatchGuard or SonicWall or Fortinet, like they're tied there. And if someone were to get access to the vendor's database of those credentials, they're going to get into your network.
Well, and attack it. And there's it's really interesting because I've been involved with several different businesses and large businesses who have invested a lot of money in cybersecurity and things like that, and multiple levels of firewalls and yada yada yada, and somehow still became victim of like a hostage. Basically, they had to pay so much money because their data was basically just somebody's email got whatever through the company, and all of the data servers were like held hostage, and the only way that they could get access to that data was to pay off this ransomware.
So ransomware is prolific now. However,
right.
The understanding has to be, if someone wants to get into your network, you have to assume they can. You have to assume they will. So you're always taking these preventative measures to try and stop them, right? You're patching things. You're adding, as much security as you can, like whether it's desktop or email. But then, if someone's not watching that, someone's going to get in. There's going to be a vulnerability that you don't know about, whether it's 0 day, meaning no one knows yet, or it's something that hasn't been patched yet. So then we have to figure out, how long are they in there? What have they done? How do we get them out? Right. And like,
what's your exposure?
It is, but you also led into the other thing, which is have really good backup. Like, it's amazing after all these years, how often that is still missed. Right. Like, I mean, my clients, for instance, every single one of my clients has a backup device, on premise if they have cloud, or cloud to cloud if it's just, on premise if they have on premise servers, or it's cloud to cloud. But all of them have backup. They all have image level backup that is not only local, but off-site. It's encrypted, at rest, and in transit, and it's immutable. Right. So this is a thing we've seen where someone has backups, but then the backups get infected and the backups get encrypted. Like, well, pick a vendor that doesn't do that. Like our vendor, like you can't overwrite those backups, so you can't infect them. So we're always just going, hey, we can just roll back to before the infection started. You find out when it started, you go in, you just roll back the entire network. You just have to have good backup in place as well as good security. It's a component of that stack, right?
Right. And so for the average business owner, whether you're a small business or a large business, they're not the experts in this stuff, and they're trying to manage their profit loss balance sheet, and
but the pricing has come down so much. So it has gotten so much less expensive to implement some of this stuff. And even if you're a larger business, you can probably talk to some kind of MSP to outsource or assist with part of this solution. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. But for a small business, you're 5 to 100 employees, you probably don't have IT people on staff, especially security focused IT people on staff.
Right.
You really shouldn't, because you can outsource that for a lot cheaper and they probably will do a better job, because we're not looking at one environment, we're looking at 100. Right.
Right. If you do it every day, you're more like, it's your expertise.
Yes.
It's not.
And we have access to less expensive tools, and they may be the exact same tools, but they're less expensive because
you're doing it in multiple different.
Yes, well, in volume. And the other thing to think about is cyber insurance, and at some level general liability insurance. Like that's not getting any better either, by the way. Like
Right.
they are asking more questions, harder questions, and you can answer yes by implementing some things, but you've got to get started, because some of those things will take time to do. Some are easy,
Right.
some are low-hanging fruit, and the insurance companies won't like tell you outright, like, well, we don't. If you answer no to that question, it's okay, because no one's actually doing that. They're asking questions like that, or like, is every one of your employees' personally owned devices fully encrypted? You're like, no.
Right. You don't know what you should or shouldn't answer, but there are, and I'm sure kind of what you're going with that in some regards is that the return on investment when you're paying for an MSP is maybe the insurance.
So these insurance companies are getting wise. They are now coming to us. Like there's a new company called Cysurance, right? And they literally go directly through MSPs to it's not selling, because we're not agents, we can't sell a cyber policy. But if the providers like Chubb, these major providers, right? If Chubb, we can get better pricing for the same level of insurance with Chubb, because they know it's coming from us, if that makes sense. Because
it does, because the insurance company, what I used to do or whatever, the insurance company, if you think about where their investment is, they want you to reduce your risk as much as possible, because it puts them at less risk. So they definitely want to say, hey, these are the things that we want you to do, because that reduces our exposure as well.
Absolutely. Well, they don't like to lose money, right? Insurance companies never going to lose money, so they're going to find really good ways to not. So when you're answering these questions on those cyber forms and attesting to having these things, like if you fail on any of those after you've attested to them, they're going to try not to cover you. So you just you have to know what you're looking at. You have to know what questions you're answering, and you also have to know. So funny thing, but I have clients who are getting these cyber policies for $1 million of cyber insurance. I'm like, that sounds great, but do you really need $1 million of cyber coverage? Like, what's your worst case? And I'm talking SMBs. I mean, if you're talking bigger enterprise, corporations, you absolutely need to have a high limit on those policies. But as a small business, like you're most likely not going to need $1 million in coverage. If we can attest also that yes, excellent backups are in place for both the local and the cloud. MFA, or multi-factor authentication, is enabled for all accounts. All company-owned devices are encrypted. We can answer things like that. Then one, they'll give you a lower rate, but two, what do you need for coverage? $500,000, $250,000. They have good plans for this, but they're not leading with those plans. So instead of spending $10,000 a year on cyber, you might be able to spend $2,500 a year and get plenty of coverage. And even with us implementing like our security package that like we do. I mean, I'm sure all MSPs are doing some kind of security package, which includes email security, desktop security, backup for all of those, and a SOC service. But you can recoup those costs just in savings from insurance if you do it right.
Right. No, that makes complete sense. And I always like to take it back to the most simplest of terms that almost all of us can deal with: car insurance. Like, do we really know how much coverage we need, and what, we kind of go, well, what's our, what can we afford as a deductible, and how much do we actually need? And to have kind of somebody that you trust and value their opinion on, to say, hey, this
obviously with the car insurance, like anything, you're looking for the worst possible case scenario, and that usually is a lawsuit more than a direct hit, right? That is yes, this thing happened to us, but a car scenario, like we hurt someone really badly, and that could be a really big lawsuit, so you need a really high limit. And when you're talking about cyber, at least you shouldn't be talking about physical, physical repercussions of that. Like, you're not going to kill anybody with your bad email, but you could easily cost someone a lot of money. And that's typically this scenario we see where someone has gotten into someone's email address and then created like a fake domain that's very similar to theirs, and sent an email across to another entity saying, hey, don't pay your money like you usually do to our company, please wire it to this new account. And that could be a big loss. But I mean, companies are getting wiser to this, thank goodness. And like I just tell people, maybe you should just pick up the phone and make sure that that person who sent you that instruction is a legitimate person and you know them. I mean, emails, don't trust email. Email can be faked very easily. Look at that with a very wary eye. Even the mail, like we learned a long time ago, the mail is not necessarily safe. So, but the phone, pick up, talk to someone, interact with them, make sure that they are the ones who are telling you to change this account information, which should really be ACH, not wire. Just throw that out there, and just because ACH has more protections, or like pay by a check. And I think it's really interesting where with these companies who historically always just took and wrote checks for things, and then some vendor is going, hey, did you send me some wire information? Like, thank God they asked, right? Like a red flag, like, we've been paying you by check for 30 years. Should we wire this money?
Why, right? Why are we changing the way we do things here?
Ask questions, read through things, be vigilant, pick up the phone when you need to. Don't trust things at face value right now. And then, just to totally change the subject, but Mike, did put something in the chat. Yes, how does IT interact with IoT devices? IT can send signals to add additional chemicals to put more chlorine in the water source by a bad actor. Yes, that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, right? Exactly. There's a lot of things, when we say you don't know what you don't know. None of us know what we don't know right now. So hire the experts is my opinion. Like, don't try to be the expert on everything.
Yes.
But understanding really what you need to engage experts in is vital. So what would
security one of them right now, right? Like, this is the time where if you were ever thinking about talking to someone about security, now's the time.
It is well, it's a scary landscape right now at the exposure.
It's not going to get any better until we make some major changes, right? And then there are efforts towards zero trust, which, Google it for a minute, you'll get some fun answers. But, it's this idea we don't trust anything until we do, and that's probably the way we're going to have to go, because otherwise none of this is ever going to be secured. So, as humans, at least, we can start paying more attention, asking more questions, reading these things through very carefully, and talking to experts, right?
Awareness. It's purely aware. It's awareness, and it's
see something, say something.
Yeah, exactly. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but I will find out, and I will go find it from someone. So
phrase is, right, I can't know everything. I mean, I know a lot enough to be dangerous, but I'm often like, I don't know the answer to that question. I'll find out, because I know who to talk to. I know the vendors. I work with an outsourced virtual CISO. I have security experts I can call, right?
And networking, like we're all doing, like engaging in networks where we can create awareness within ourselves and connect with experts in the different fields that we need to be in. And
if you ever have questions, find someone like me. We will answer them. I mean, that's.
Or in case I just want somebody that'll listen to me and I can talk with them. So.
I'll do that too if you want. I can banter with you on this all day, I'm sure. Okay. Yeah, no, we're here. I'm here. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's nice to have a name like Tait Covert. There's only one of me. You'll find me pretty quickly.
That does work. I did find you on there. So it does work. Yeah. And Mike is recording all this, and he's going to provide all the links and emails and all that stuff. And it was a pleasure meeting and connecting with you, and you allowing me to chat with you. And thank you very, very much. And Mike,
thank you for having me. It was really fun. It's always fun. I just encourage everyone, again, like, talk to someone. It's like therapy, but talk to someone in the security field right now, whether it's about your network design, securing it, your Office 365, your desktop, any of it. Like, it's okay to ask for help because the world is scary and is changing very rapidly.